consent date.
All right, I'd like to call to order this meeting of the Executive Committee of the Board of Trustees of the City University of New York. We have three action items to consider this afternoon. We'll take them up one at a time. We'll take up first action item 1A, the City University of New York Power Authority Encore CUNY Agreement. May I ask General Counsel Rick Schaefer to present this one for us?
Yes. Over the last year or two, we have entered into several agreements with the New York Power Authority to develop energy-efficient projects that are implemented. Am I not getting through here?
No, I'm so sorry.
Okay. Throughout CUNY. And these projects have never before been brought to the board because they are intra-agency governmental agreements which are not paid for using any of our normal capital or operating monies, but instead are part of the utility billing process between NYPA and the university. And for the most part in the past, the projects are paid for out of the increased efficiency that they produce. But we have a number of projects coming up in the future, one of which needs to get started this summer, whereby we will need to spend capital funds because at least in the short term, the energy savings will not equal or exceed the cost of the project. And we will bring an omnibus resolution to the board for full consideration in the fall. But the first project out of the starting blocks this summer is a project at BMCC for an amount not to exceed $820,000. And because everybody wanted to get the work started this summer, we've brought it to the Executive Committee at this time for approval.
All right, thank you very much. I'm sure we all understand the need to get energy conservation projects up and running as quickly as possible. Are there any questions for our General Counsel about this one? If not, all in favor of item 1A, please say aye.
Aye.
Are there any opposed? Abstentions? Thank you very much. That item carries. Our next item, item 1B, is the approval seeking our approval of the City University of New York's participation in the New York State Health Insurance Program. Mr. Chancellor, do you want to introduce this?
Let me just be very brief, Mr. Chairman. This resolution is part of the reformation that we are going through in doctoral education here at the university. It started with a review of many of our PhD programs in the sciences. That has led to an action taken by the board and approved by the New York State regions, allowing campuses starting with City College and Hunter College to be given PhD authority in a select group of science areas. Consistent with making the move to hire great faculty and build wonderful facilities for the sciences was an equally important interest to bring to this university the most promising graduate students that we could. We started this change with 90 individuals that we tendered offers for to study here starting in September in some of the areas of science that we are investing in. And I'm pleased to tell you, Mr. Chairman, that these 90 students are absolutely exquisite in their academic backgrounds. And part of the reason that we were as successful as we have been is that we started to become much more competitive with respect to stipend support, certainly tuition remission, and for the first time we gave full health care benefits. We believe that we must extend the notion of full benefits, health benefits, for doctoral students here at the university, provided that they have employment at the university in a certain set of areas. This would extend health insurance to over 2,400 individuals that now do not have health insurance, that are enrolled in a PhD program, even beyond the sciences, certainly. And we have made the commitment to self-fund that program. We envisage that the opening condition will be about $2.7 million. This has been worked out jointly between the president of our graduate school and university center, Bill Kelly, and the central administration. And Pam Silverblatt, our vice chancellor for labor relations, was able to secure approval from a New York State health insurance program, and in order to finalize all of the components of this relationship, we need to bring this action to you today. And with your indulgence, Mr. Chairman, I would ask Vice Chancellor Silverblatt if she could go into the components of what we're presenting today.
Certainly, Chancellor. Thank you. The resolution that is before the board today is seeking approval to allow CUNY to participate in a New York State-sponsored student employee health plan that's run through the New York State Health Insurance Plan. The plan is run through the state on behalf of eligible doctoral students, and so we are seeking to participate in this existing plan on the same footing as the state university participates for its eligible doctoral students. Our students will have to be matriculated in a doctoral program here at CUNY, as well as be employed in certain capacities, either as a graduate assistant or in certain adjunct capacities. There is a minimum compensation threshold that the eligible students will need to meet in order to participate. This is all being done consistent with the existing program that's in place, as I said, for the SUNY doctoral students. So we are joining on as a participating employer into their program. Our level of benefits, our level of co-pays, our level of deductibles for our students will be that which exists already. We have worked here centrally with President Kelly and his staff at the Graduate Center, with representatives from the Governor's Office of Employee Relations and the State Office of Civil Service to allow us to participate in the plan. And as a precursor to participating, they have said that we need an authorization resolution from this board, and they also need assent on behalf of the represented employees from the Professional Staff Congress. So we have worked together to craft an understanding with the union that represents the employees, and upon approval of the board today, we will be in a position to execute a letter with PSC showing our mutual agreement that the state will request as part of our going forward. The components cover medical, mental health, prescription drugs, vision. It's a fairly comprehensive health plan, and the university will pay 90% of the cost for individual coverage. The students will pay 10%, and there's an incremental add-on for family coverage. We are expecting, based on discussions between Central and the Graduate Center, that most of our participating students will avail themselves of the individual coverage at a cost, as the Chancellor said, of about $2.7 million for next year.
Very good. I have one question, it perhaps would be directed to President Kelly. Will this health plan be a competitive health plan for our doctoral students as compared to the health plans of other leading research universities?
Absolutely, Mr. Chair. It's part of the appeal of this plan, both in terms of the costs that students will incur, approximately $125, and the coverage. This, in fact, I would say would put us in the upper quartile of health insurance packages that are being offered. Particularly important because, unlike most of our competitors, we do not have a health center, hospital, so forth and so on. So this is a huge breakthrough for us, and we're very, very grateful to Pam and to the rest of the university for making this possible.
All right. Any comments?
Yeah, Mr. Chair, I think that this program makes all the sense in the world. We really, especially in these times when health insurance coverage is very important, and individuals who are doctoral students want to pursue academic study without having to worry about how are they going to handle any type of a malady that might occur in their life. And so this is a great plan. I'm glad that we're taking the leadership in terms of having this, and also I'm glad that it's competitive, because we want to make sure that a number of items are covered when students wouldn't have any other place to go to for this type of coverage. So I'm 300% in favor of this, Mr. Chairman.
That's great. Any other comments or questions about this resolution? You have the resolution before you. Seeing no questions, all in favor say aye.
Aye.
Are there any opposed? Abstentions? All right, that resolution carries. We'll turn next to item 1C, the City University of New York technology fee increase. Vice Chancellor Malavi, will you introduce this for us? Or Mr. Chancellor, do you want to say a word?
Yeah, again, with your indulgence, just a little on background. It was approximately 6.5 years ago when a recommendation was made to this board to create a technology fee, and that fee was enacted as part of the fee structure of the university. At that time, the fee was set at $75 for every full-time student and $37.50 for part-time students. In the past 6.5 years, the costs of running that program with the increase in our student population and the complexities of changes in the needs of students for technology, not only in their classroom experience but outside of the classroom, has exceeded about 20%. So we're really we're reduced our capacity by about 1/5 over that particular period of time. In order to meet our goal for continuing to provide services at the level that our students demand, and I would say need, not only in their pedagogy, but in their own research, we feel that we need to increase the fee modestly from $75 to $100, and for part-time students from $37.50 to $50 on a semester by semester basis. Let me also say that we are never interested in extending fee structures or tuition levels, but I would say that this is a compelling and necessary case. I would tell you, as we look upon the fee structure, that federal assistance planned for the 2008 semester, fall semester, has been raised quite substantially in Pell Grants, which will go from $4,300 to $4,700, an increase of about $400 for every eligible student. So for any student in great need, the Pell Grant will certainly cover that, and more so because this would certainly be eligible for Pell Grant coverage. Also, in terms of process, Mr. Chairman, we have established technology committees throughout the university. When we instituted the $75 fee, as I said, in February of 2002, we mandated that every campus develop a technology committee that would be composed of faculty, students, and administrators. No monies were allowed to be spent from those fees unless those plans were approved by the central administration and posted on each of the campus's websites so that all students know what that fee is going to support. And certainly that will continue with this increase if you deem that increase to be appropriate. Those committees will reconvene in the early fall. All of the presidents and their chief academic officers know that we will need to receive reports from those committees so that we understand, and the students in particular, understand that the incremental cost that they will be bearing, those additional dollars will be used for. I also want to just conclude by talking a little more about process. The reason that we are convening in the summertime is driven by when the budgets for this university were received. We did not get the final accounting, and I must say that it is still in flux for our community colleges. We are petitioning the division of the budget to give us a little more flexibility in how those dollars will be spent, but at the end of the day, we have very deep cuts in our community college budgets and deep cuts in the senior college budgets as well. And it's because of the late budget that we decided that we needed to do this technology fee very quickly in early July after we got the budget that was approved by the City Council. Vice Chancellor Ernesto Malave wrote to each president to alert them that we were thinking about bringing this to the board this summer, to alert their chief student affairs officers immediately, and to do what they could to educate the students with respect to what it is that we plan. And Vice Chancellor Gary Moore, our Vice Chancellor of Student Affairs, very quickly around that time as well, reached out to the University Student Center leadership to alert them, and did the best that we could to educate and get that information out. We will be reconvening these technology committees very soon, and hopefully we will be able to provide even more services for the students to enable them to be as competitive as we would like to see them be in the use of technology, so that when they leave the institution, they are equipped to compete in the best possible way. So that's background on this, and I don't know if Vice Chancellor Malave would like to
I would just add just two things very quickly. One with respect to the budgetary situation. We're down about $26 million from where we anticipated we would be this year, and not the big surprise, but at the last committee of the Fiscal Affairs, I advised the committee that depending on how city budget negotiations went, that we may be returning to the board with a tuition resolution. We're not returning to the board with a tuition resolution because while the City of New York and the City Council were not able to provide a full restoration, they were able to restore about 19.5 out of the $26 million in cuts. And even that in and of itself is not driving the recommendations. Well, our concern is that is only the first phase of what is sure to be further and further erosion in the both city and state budgets, whether it comes from City Hall or the State House in Albany. And this increase will permit us to make sure that whatever erosion takes place in our budgetary situation does not take place in the area of critical technology needs for the students. That's one thing. The other thing with respect to the senior colleges and a concern as to whether or not we will be able to spend the technology fee that is raised. I anticipate to be able to fully expend the entire technology fee increase. There was some concern that the new limitations on special revenue accounts in the state will prohibit us from spending that. I want to dissuade anyone of that. We will be able to fully expend in the 09 years whatever revenues are generated from the technology fee. Those are the 2 points that I wanted to make.
Okay, thank you very much. I appreciate those points. Are there questions for the Chancellor, Vice Chancellor Malave, or Vice Chancellor Moore? Mr. Ramos?
Good afternoon, good evening, whatever it is right now. I want to make a few comments. I know I emailed a couple of people about my concerns with having this proposal be brought to this committee. Number one, the process did not involve students at all. The students were not consulted on whether we should have an increase. They were not consulted on how much it should be. They were not consulted on what it should be used for. Student life officials may have been notified, but they did not do their job into notifying students. The same thing that they have failed in the same way to do with the compact, they failed again to do with this. And speaking to some of the presidents that are here present today, they were informed by us, by USS, who, let the committee know, I was informed last Thursday at my job and asked to give feedback by 5 o'clock that day. Now, how that is adequate time for me and my organization to get any feedback from not only my vice chairs, which I then had to call an emergency meeting with that same evening and got a number of them there, but to then get responses from students and student government members is ridiculous. And so the informing of students was not done right. And secondly, when this committee was formed last year, I brought up the concern because initially I did not sit on this committee as the student trustee. And my concern was that an issue regarding students such as this one will be brought to this committee and not be able to be voted on by the student trustee, which is the case right now. I was informed at that time that issues such as this would not be brought up. It would be more things of, continuing leases or maybe hiring some small type things, nothing big. This is very big. This is very important and very related to students and directly affects them. And so the fact that I, as a student representative, do not have a vote on this committee, and the fact that this document is being brought to this committee when we could have done it in July, and I understand the issues with the budget that you were saying, but if we all knew that there were going to be issues with budgets. So if we thought in advance to do it now, we could have thought in advance to do it in June in the last budget meeting where I could have had a vote and a voice on this. And so I feel very left out. I think the students in this room right here feel very left out. And the last thing I want to say is the tech fee now wants to be expanded so that we can use it for faculty and administration purposes. I know the structure of my tech fee committee. It has 3 student government presidents on it, along with about 6 other administrators and faculty. What's to say that this tech fee now will be used by campuses only for administrative and faculty, and not be used for what its intended purposes in the first place were to buy computers, upgrade computers, buy programs, fund different things that students need, not faculty and administration to go do their research, not faculty and administration to have a LCD screen that's 19 inches or a nice desk. And so I'm really concerned that by giving this liberty to these tech fee committees, which aren't student majority or even half student, that this tech fee will now be abused by campuses for their purposes and not for the purposes of the students. And so I really think that this should be considered. There should be some open discussion on it, and it shouldn't be just passed without the student's voice being heard, except at this moment when I spoke.
All right. Any other comments or questions? President Perez?
For those students who are here from BMTC, my attempt has always been to try to maintain the best service and provide the highest quality of education for you. And there are times in the history of an institution where we have to do things which are not uncomfortable, which may come as Mr. Ramos indicated, a surprise. But we at BMTC support, we being the administration and me as the president, because it's important that we maintain the highest quality. And during times of budgetary constraint, we have to look for flexibility, so that while you may question its use for personnel to assist in the technology service that we provide our students. I think you have the opportunity within your campus, as our students do, to look and ask us questions. But it is not our attempt, when I agree to this, to try to additionally burden students. But there are times in the histories of institutions and a university where there are needs, and you can't always predict when those needs are going to be present. And if you don't act, then what do we do within an institution? We cut back on services, or do we fall back as a university? So I just wanted to share that this was not something that the presidents individually thought that, well, this is something we just put on the backs of students. It was something that we thought about long and for a while. They're trying to determine what would be the best avenue, and this is the only avenue we have at this point. I just want to share with you the position of the president.
Thank you very much.
A question.
Yes, question?
Yeah, I just want to ask Vice Chancellor Malavi is, if we didn't vote on this, what would be the consequence to our technology situation and to the colleges?
Well, it would be about $5 million in service enhancements that we would be unable to attain. We anticipate generating $11 million in enhanced services as a result of this going forward today. If we don't go forward today, we'll lose the opportunity to make $5 million worth of investments beginning in the fall.
So in effect, it's to follow up on Trustee Barry's question. It's a little bit similar to the previous resolution that we dealt with, although in a different context. If we postponed changing the health insurance arrangements for graduate students and dealt with that in the fall, the consequence of that would be that graduate students wouldn't have health insurance in the fall. We could pick it up in the spring, but we'd lose, in effect, all the benefits of having that in place at the beginning of the academic year. This is a different context, but it's the same kind of situation where there's a lot of benefit, if you're going to do something like this, to having it in place at the beginning of the academic year so that the benefits of it can spread through the entire academic year. Other comments? Yes.
Mr. Chairman, could you just explain the broadening to include more administrative computing expenses? Because as we recall, when the fee was initially instituted, it was, I concur with the students about it, was for their benefit. Could you explain the broadening for it to be for, quote, more administrative computing services?
A lot of the issues that have come up over the years involve network issues. So we need to build a network in order to have, let's say if you want to do a wireless campus or be attached to the larger CUNY net, we need to build out the network in some cases, and often things that people want to do, they felt they can't do because we don't have that ability. This would give them the option, if they chose, to do that backroom wiring in addition to the actual front-end application.
So it's more infrastructure,
That's correct.
Opposed to what I would generally
it's
call
certainly,
administrative.
Just two things. Certainly it is not, for an administrator to have a big LCD in their office. And there is checks and balances built in. Each of the technology plans are reviewed by me and by Lex Loeb to make sure that they're not those kind of things. And if we see those kind of things, we won't approve them.
Other comments, questions? Are you ready for the question then?
Can I make one last comment?
Go ahead.
Would it be possible to not hold it off to the fall? I understand the need that you want to have it in place for the fall. Would it be possible to have another executive committee meeting next month, and then within that time frame have a hearing just to hear from students and administrators and faculty, so that it wouldn't feel like this fee is just being pushed on anybody. People will have their time to say what they have to say, and then the committee can meet again next month and have it done before the fall. And so the proper procedures and the proper notification to the students and the opportunity for the students to have their voice heard, and even faculty and administration heard, would be done, and it wouldn't be under this suspicious thing, a cloud or anything like that.
Well, I would take issue with respect to suspiciousness. There's nothing untoward here. I remind you, Robert, that when the technology fee was instituted in February of '02, students were heard after the fact about how those dollars would be used. And I think that is certainly very appropriate. We were very, very careful to make sure that students had a legitimate voice in what they thought were critically important needs that they had, that their money was helping to support. I want to reinforce the point again that I think Alan Dobrin just made, is that the technology committees exist on each of our campuses. Not a dime is spent at a campus unless a formal plan is submitted to the Chancellery. In particular, it would be the Executive Vice Chancellor for Academic Affairs and the University Provost. Those committees must have representation of students. The number of students varies from campus to campus. That's not something that I think I ought to control, that we give the presidents and the faculty and the students an opportunity to devise the committee that is most appropriate for their institution. But at the end of the day, the students need to be heard about how the dollars are going to be utilized. And I will assure everybody in this room, whether you're sitting in the gallery or sitting here at the table, that no money will be spent unless a legitimate plan is conceived and is well thought out and has the open participation of all students who need to be heard either through open fora or through their representatives on the committees that each particular campus has in place.
Okay. All right, are you ready for the question? All in favor, please say aye. Aye. Are there any opposed? Are there any abstentions? That carries. That concludes the business that we have. I have one further announcement. President Dolores Fernandez of Hostos Community College notified Chancellor Goldstein on July 7th, 2008, that she will be retiring from the Hostos presidency upon the appointment of her successor. We all owe President Fernandez a great debt of gratitude for her decade of service, first as the acting president, then the president of Hostos Community College. We will thank her in a formal way at the actual conclusion of her presidency, but I did want to announce her intention and to state how much we are in her debt. In the meantime, I'm pleased to announce that a search committee to make recommendations for the next president of Hostos Community College has been formed. I'm very pleased to say the committee will be chaired by Trustee Philip Alfonso Berry, our Vice Chairman of the CUNY Board of Trustees. He will be joined by fellow CUNY trustees Rita DiMartino, Hugo Morales, Frida Foster Tolbert, and Jeffrey Weisenfeld. President Ricardo R. Fernandez of Herbert Lehman College will serve as the president's representative to the committee. Faculty, students, and alumni of Hostos will be represented as well through the appropriate governance procedures, which will name them as soon as possible. And the search committee under Chairman Berry will begin its work shortly. With that committee beginning its work, we can all look forward to seeing Hostos Community College continue to grow while it fulfills its historic and great educational mission in the Bronx. With that announcement, if there's no further business, this executive committee is concluded.